Well, just to top it off, I was muted. Brilliant. Yes, it crashed again. I was just saying to nobody that it's been stable all day long. It's been absolutely solid, no problems at all. And then the moment I started streaming, that's obviously just a little bit too much effort for it, and it crashed. Thanks, Delta. I might steal that off of Claire and have that myself. But yeah, Claire had a good idea, which was if it crashes again, what I'll do is I'll just do a Q&A stream whilst building the PC. So we will see how we get on. Yeah, well, the silly thing is, I would have had it built already, but I wanted to get this build done. Oh, thank you, Firstus. I shall grab myself a fruit and nut. Oh, was that CSI's idea, was it? Oh, well done. Yeah, good idea. Yeah, you're right. I think at this point, the new rig is starting to take priority. I was hoping I could just get the build done, get it out, and then work on the PC, but it's taken longer than I would have hoped to get this build finished, so I may have to change tactics somewhat. Oh, thank you, Voorhees, and thank you, Gamingkin, as well. It's very kind of you guys. I'm talking about the development build on Nasty, not the full patch. So the demo update will go out once this is finished and polished overall. But obviously I try to do 2 builds a week, internal development builds. The last couple of weeks I've only managed 1, and I was hoping I'd get 2 done this week, but this sensor work is, well, deep. There's a lot of stuff to wrangle to get it all working. And thank you, Galactic Survivor. We're going to have a lot of chocolate. But that's fine, because Claire loves chocolate. Hey, Velvet. So what I'm working on is finishing off the work I've been doing since Sunday, which was getting the data objects and the data structure for the sensors a lot more organized and a lot more streamlined. And ironically, a lot more stable. Not that my PC seems to care. So let's give it another quick whirl a minute, just to test the point. So, as I was saying, when you update the range buttons here, you can see that it's updating the UI. Sorry, not the range buttons, the location buttons. We're nudging sectors across. Now, it's not doing anything, it's not generating anything, so you can see it's instant and there's no lag. As soon as I switch focus, now when I press them, they are going to generate data. So if we... I've reworded this as well, because there's been two concepts with this. You've got the focal point, which is where the sensors are pointing, like where they're focused, like either around the ship or in some other location across the galaxy somewhere. But you've also got the display alignment. And I've renamed it to display alignment because that just seems to make more sense. So either we're aligning the display to the current focal point, i.e. this, or we're aligning it to the center of the galaxy. So you can see we're moving, where we're aligning the display. Hopefully that wording makes more sense now. That's a great idea, Delta, thank you. Yes, Cherry Kraken and Dr. Pepper. It is the hero's beverage. And thank you, Mark McKay. I'm a huge sucker for Jack Daniel's honey. I do actually have a bottle here next to me. It takes me a while to get through it. So now that we're on this mode, if I zoom in, right, this is where it crashed last time. Hopefully it won't crash this time. So as we press the button there, it's regenerating the sector data because we're skipping across one sector at a time. And you can see here that all that's changing. So that's basically saying how many objects there are within that sector. And that is the full sector as well. Geez, guys. Thank you, Firstus. Yeah, actually, I tend to go through a lot of antacids. Over the past few years, I've put on quite a bit of weight, just sat in my chair programming. So I've got like programmer's belly. So yeah, I do go through a lot of antacids. So yeah, because this is a relatively time-consuming action, we don't want that to happen too regularly. That's interesting. Why are we relatively few objects here? Oh, that's interesting. It's an interarm region. Obviously, you'd expect to not have much in the way of stars. Interesting. So the definition of arm versus interarm comes very much off of this 2D texture. So it uses that texture to define whether something is an arm region or an interarm region. Now, interestingly, it's thinking everything is interarm, so that's strikes me as a bug that needs to be worked out. Let's found an open cluster. Okay, yeah, that's something else to fix. But that's the concept anyway, and the texture resolution is actually exactly 1,000 by 1,000 because the galaxy is 1,000 by 1,000 sectors. So obviously, the real world Milky Way is 100,000 light years, and each sector is 100 light years. So condense that down, that's 1,000 sectors. So it is 1-to-1 in terms of pixels. I'll investigate why that's not behaving as expected. Now the data we put here is carried across through to here, or at least it should be. and then this generates all of the stars that are within that particular region. So we've got our manual location set to here, and these are the stars in that area. That should be updating, so something else I need to check, make sure that value carries across. It is actually the same stored piece of data, so that's interesting. Of course, the idea with this is that you can target any star anywhere in the entire galaxy from this console. So how far do we get? So the auto refresh is working now. These animations are working on the long range now, and you can. So next isn't hooked up, neither is set or any of the numbers. So those all need hooking up. Zoom sort of works. It's driving the holo display, but not number of targets in range. And this is why it's taken a few days to get to this point, because there's so much data being thrown around with these sensors that it's one of those age-old things where trying to present that much complexity in as simple and as approachable manner as possible is a huge challenge. But hopefully the layout and the data structure is heading in the right direction now. Okay. So really I've just been going through this one button at a time, and then just hooking up the functionality as I go. There definitely will be. We'll probably have just a generic debris field. And then players can make of that what they will. Find out why this is not updating. So the tactical system, in terms of how it's supposed to work, is reasonably well defined. Stop giving me spam. So we know how we want it to work. So generally speaking, we want it to feel like two galleons fighting at sea. So we're not looking for fast-paced pew-pew. We're looking for slow, methodical, tactical naval combat in space. The ships that you'll be going up against, and indeed your ship, will have location-based damage. So when you scan an alien vessel, you will essentially see power, energy sources within that vessel, and those are the things you'll be targeting specifically. Now, depending on how much more advanced that ship is versus you may or may not know what that energy source even is. Whether that's the shields, the engines, the weapons, you'll have no clue. So in some cases, if they're really, really advanced, you're just picking an energy source and guessing. Like if one of them spikes every time the weapons fire, you can kind of extrapolate that that's probably the weapons. That sort of thing. So what you'll do is you'll target those energy sources, and you won't physically be moving the turrets and things on the ship. The ship's AI will handle that part of it. But what you'll be doing is you'll be painting targets for the ship's AI to shoot at, and then you'll have the option to change whether it's single shot, auto fire, whether it's using the rail guns or the beam lasers. So you'll have full control over what complement of weaponry you're using and what mode that weaponry is being used in and where it's pointing, but the ship itself will handle the actual firing. Or rather, the actual aiming. You can still have a manual fire mode, but you won't be physically aiming the turrets, if that makes sense. And then you'll just keep firing at that enemy ship until all of its energy signatures are essentially dead, and then that's just a dead husk floating in space. We're not going to have ships just arbitrarily explode when a generic health value reaches 0. We're going to try and simulate it a lot more in depth than that. And then the same will work for your ship as well. Yeah, we definitely want it to be tactical. And with the not knowing what energy signatures are what, that's where the skill of your ship's science team will come into play. The more they're trained and the more experience they have with alien vessels, the more they'll be able to identify what something is. So when you look at an energy signature, it'll say something like, there's a 75% confidence that this is the engines, and you can use that as a guideline. That's the plan anyway, so we'll see how well that plan survives implementation. Yeah, in terms of the autopilot, the autopilot is going to be separated out into various individual functions, no different than the autopilot on an airliner. So you'll have things like manage approach, heading hold, speed hold, that sort of thing. So if you want, you can have the autopilot only manage heading and then control the speed yourself, or you could have it do the full journey from end to end. What we're going to have though is we're going to have stars have a certain radius of influence in terms of their gravity, and then that radius will affect how well the FTL drive operates, or rather its efficiency. So flying close to stars is going to slow the ship down. So a sort of a weaving, meandering path between stars is how you'll keep the ship running at full power or full speed, which is what the autopilot won't do. So the autopilot will just plow through in a straight line. So if you take over manually and steer the ship around the gravity wells, then you'll get from A to B quicker. Oh, I see the problem. I'm using the wrong value. That's more like it. Once your ship is dead in the water, either the aliens will leave on the assumption that you are destroyed and at least no longer a threat, or they could board you. And boarding operations are something that we'll look at probably much further down the line, but that's the kind of ultimate goal. Disable the vessel and then board it. There we go. So the values are now carrying through between the two modes, which is what we want. There we go. So changing it on there affects it there. Changing it on there affects it there. Perfect. Yeah, the alien vessels will have the same sort of things as as your vessel, only theirs will be simulated logically in code rather than physically. So they'll have repair crews, they'll have things get fixed over time. Only those things will be logically simulated, not physically simulated. Yes, Firstus, that's the plan. So once this is all hooked up and working, the very next thing to work on is the ability to click on them and then view detail. See, right now it's just defaulting to Sag A because it's defaulting to 000. Interesting that there's a slight mismatch in terms of number of objects, because we're seeing 9,800 here and 11,000 here. Well, whilst I'm not on the stream, I'll pick this apart and see if I can work out what the discrepancy is there. Yeah, that's a tremendous amount of data. If we set that to 0, it's not showing too many objects, so hopefully that won't be too bad here. So 932, sorry, 912 there, 932 there. Yeah, something's not being counted somewhere, so I'll see if I can figure out what that is. So none of these are actually targeting yet, because of the way the data's changed, but we'll be fixing that this evening. But it does seem to be working, so it's showing the objects that are there. should definitely be generating more than that for a location that's essentially right in the middle of the galaxy. Yeah, interesting. So this should show Sajay now, which it does, so that's good. This is a custom location, so the description's not quite accurate. That is easily resolved. But this is good though, so we're making progress with this. So we're now at the point where you can indeed target Sajay from Earth and fly there directly. Yes, Anasi. In the long run, we're going to generate procedural interiors for the alien vessels. So once you've disabled them, you'll be able to board whatever that procedural interior is. With the hero races that are built for the story campaign, they'll have properly built, manually handcrafted interiors. But for just the random procedural races, they'll have procedural interiors. Yeah, those systems with shared coordinates are essentially like a binary or a trinary system. In the real world data, there's no way of distinguishing or no way of tying those systems together. So if you look at the likes of Sinbad and look at the data on there, it does have some way of tying those systems together. I'm not sure whereabouts in Sinbad it handles that, but if we can find out where, then we can do the same, and then we can tie those systems into a trinary system. Yep, there'll definitely be a favourite system. Generally speaking, more on the helm. I don't think it's powered right now, no. But on here on the helm side, you'll be able to add favourites there. And it would be nice to do something on here as well. I'm probably going to have a couple of buttons up the top here where we can switch from sensors to astrometrics, and on the astrometrics you'll be able to see everything you've scanned. So every single star system that you scan will be added automatically to the astrometrics data, and you'll be able to just view through that or scroll through that at your leisure. So we'll have to add some way of saving and recalling favourites from there as well. That's definitely something we want. Also, the ability to leave notes as well is definitely something else that's needed. Yeah, the way we're looking at it is, let's say a modern day aircraft carrier. If an aircraft carrier was destroyed, then it's going to have some holes blown in it and it's going to sink. But fundamentally, it's still an aircraft carrier. It's just an aircraft carrier at the bottom of the ocean. It's just going to be a mangled wreck of metal, because it won't just arbitrarily explode. Obviously, if it's got ordnance on it, that might go up, but the ships in the game generally aren't packed with explosives. So once all the internal hardware has been destroyed, what you're left with is just a floating hunk of powerless metal. Yeah, so that things shouldn't explode unless there is something explosive to explode. Let's make a bit more room here because this is about to get big, I think. Right, why don't we collapse these nodes? So when we're sending through commands from the UI, there's two types of thing we're passing through really. Either it's a straight button press, which is nice and simple, we can manage that here, or it's going to be a button press that also contains some information. So like when we press the set key, we're also passing through the vector that we've entered into that UI element. So that just needs to be handled, separately from the straight button presses. I was hoping I could combine it all into one all-inclusive system, but the presence of that vector just kind of means that I can't do that in this instance. We need essentially the same with the long-range sensors as we're using on the GPS. So in fact we may as well just duplicate that and handle that accordingly. Yeah, I think it depends very much on the motivation of the aliens that you happen to be dealing with, and whether it's something in the story campaign or just one of the procedural aliens out in the galaxy. I would say when it comes to the procedural aliens, for the most part, they're just going to render your ship fully disabled and then move on. Just trying to make sense of why I've done this. This would seem to be completely redundant. So we're taking our manual input field, and then we're setting that same value based on the same value. That is in no way logical. Oh, hang on. No, wait. We're not setting the same value, are we? We're moving across a value, because this is the next button. Right, which means long range goes to Y, Y goes to Z, and Z goes back to X. Now, if I... Actually, no. No, ignore me. Right, so this one needs to be data only, and it isn't. So that's that one. And that one isn't data only, because we want the star systems as well. Okay. Which also means, actually, that needs ticking there. I've only just made these macros, so I neglected to tick the tick. So again, back with the notion of only generating what you need at the time, we can generate a single sector within the galaxy, and if we choose to do so data only, then it's generating the number of each object, so say a couple of thousand M-class and so on, but it's not generating the data for those stars, just the idea that there are that many. If we untick data only, then it also generates the actual stellar data as well, which is obviously takes a lot longer, so we try to avoid that if we can. That one is also data only. Can't think of anything on the GPS that wouldn't just be data only, because we only really care about the number of each object. This should actually speed this up, because it's no longer having to generate all of the stars themselves. There's a tiny hitch, but nothing too severe. Can we now edit this? We can press set, so that's the main thing. Actually, if we set that on there and view that data. So if we now clear this, that should change. Okay, so that's not refreshing. Just need to make sure that when we press set, that also updates. That one is going to require that action message. So one of the other things I added was the concept of being able to send through a command when we update the data. So by placing just that string there, we know that when this data gets read next, we'll perform an additional action based on whatever this action message is. Like in this case, refresh the list of entries. We don't want to refresh it here, only when we press set. Okay. So hopefully the presence of that should be all the dots joined together. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, so it's when it generates the sector data, it's not ordering that by distance. So obviously, when it knows where the ship is, it's ordering it by distance to the ship. But when it's just generating bulk data, it's not taking that into account, which is why we've got this 0 light year value. That's easily fixed, but I suppose you don't need to list it in a particular order, to be honest, because is just a list of data from that sector. And I suppose the bigger question then becomes, if you're pinpointing a position in the galaxy and pulling out the stars from around that point, do you want to list it by order to that, distance to that point, or distance to the actual ship where you are? I suppose distance to you would be most useful. I haven't hooked clear up yet, so we'll test that one in a sec. But if I edit that, yeah, that's now changing And if we clear this one, so this should show as Sag A because it should default to 0, which it does. Great, okay. And that should work, which it is. Good. It's an oddly small number of targets there. This should be a much bigger number for the Sag A sector. So they've definitely got a few bits that need fixing there. Right, so the next thing is none of these buttons are hooked up. So they are next. This is definitely the least glamorous part of game dev. You know, working with UIs and just hooking buttons up to functions. It's a pretty monotonous, boring task, but nonetheless a necessary one. That's an interesting suggestion, CSI. Yeah. Yeah, being able to convert the number to positive or negative might be a nicer user experience than having to delete the whole number and retype it with a negative symbol. Can we fit that onto there? Yeah, I'm hoping this will just be a really nice UI to work with, and like we were discussing, I think on the last stream, we're developing a system here which, if we had this sensor technology, would work in the real world. If we were working with the same data and performing the same functionality, this is how we'd want it to work in the real world. Something that's slick and usable and quick to use, and it's kind of fun designing that whole philosophy. I reckon we can make this work, What font am I using there? Oh, looks like Claire's about to come and say hello.
I wasn't going to.
Put your foot in it.
Heyo. I just have to run to the shops, so be good to him. I'll be back in a minute.
No, I'm good, thank you. Claire's gone to buy chocolate. I bet you get chocolate as well. This one I had a Eurostar, which was this? That one. It's not particularly attractive, but we can perhaps work with this. I might make that an image instead of text just to make that easier. But I like the idea of that functionality wise, being able to flip the value. And all we need to do is multiply it by -1 and that should do the trick. Do the same one here as well. That's good to know. Okay, so one of the things that I'm probably going to change is the fact that all of these inputs go straight into a single rep notify variable, which is the only one which is separate from our mother load of variables. Because it's quite a simple thing. Which one's that? So that is handled separately here. So again, whereas all the main logic is handled quite simply with this, because we're passing those buttons separately, they need to be handled separately, which is a minor pain. I would like to combine them at some point. Right, so rather than adding that, so if we get rid of option 10 from there, want that. Right, so the value is stored as a string, which is less than ideal, but okay, we can, right, if we get the text, and then to int, no, it's going to be a string first, all right, to string, to integer, right, so we'll convert this text to an integer and then we will simply multiply whatever it is by -1 and then convert that back to text again. I'm not doing anything weird with it, am I? Let's check the formatting on this. Blah, 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 blah. Do I want commas or not? I suppose we'll keep commas just to keep it clean. Okay, and then we'll need to do exactly the same thing with the long range. Should not require anything new. Right, let's see whether that works. Of course, so the other issue, of course, is that now we are zeroing out the value when you click the edit button. However, we can now do that. The other issue is it's rereading the value that's stored. So going back to not using that separate variable to store all of this, in an ideal world, we need to, so every time we press a button, so when I press 8 there, it needs to update this UI and save that as the current value. So then that will work like what we want it to. That was interesting actually. So that works like that. If I add a 9 on the end, it only remembers one of the 8s. That's weird. We do have an int64, but it's not necessary for this. The long, you're not going to be 2 billion light years away. So yeah, a single integer is fine. Hey Archer, yes, we had a blue screen literally 10 minutes into the stream, although touch wood, it's been fine since. Just one of them things. Yeah, this particular computer is like very much on its last legs. Fortunately, however, I have a whole pile of new computer parts right next to me, which need to be constructed. Oh, I think what you're seeing there, Dak, is it's the anti-aliasing, the temporal anti-aliasing. You get the ghosting effect on high contrast things like this. Like zoomed in, it looks fine. When you zoom out, you get that kind of ghosty delay to it. Right, so of course the other issue with this is that we're having to create an entry for all of this again for the long range, whereas if we were to handle it differently, so instead of doing this, oh, thank you, Motzi. Yes, we have lots and lots of exciting stuff planned. It's just getting around to it, which is the current challenge. So much to do and so little time to do it in. So the more intelligent way of doing this, and the more reliable way of doing this is to make sure that the value that's stored in here is updated immediately when you press this, which is not difficult, to be fair. Might take a bit of space, but you can certainly do that. I'll probably collapse these into their own nodes in a minute, just to tidy it up a bit. Right, so if we do a switch on that, and then we make an effort to spell it properly. So I can have all of these go into the same node here, so I can steal the one on here actually. So if I steal that, although that's the long range one that we don't want, we want the other one. Don't believe you can do a select on a string, or you can. No, you can't. No, you can't. That's a shame. Although, can you? No, you can't. Right. Okay, that makes that redundant then. Which means that I'm just going to have to do this for each of these. Hey, Scotty. Yeah, you're not wrong, Mark. You're definitely not wrong. Yeah, I can switch on a string. It's the select statement I want to be able to do. So what I want to be able to do is use a string as a wildcard mask on a select statement, which we do not have the option to do. I can select on it quite easily, but that kind of defeats the object because we're already doing that there. No matter though, because what we can do perhaps is let's set the members in here just so we're so we know what we're working with. So we're setting those coordinates. Yeah, so what we want to achieve is, so when you press the 0 input, we're adding that 0 onto whichever one of these is the current active entry field. So we already know what this value is because we've pressed the edit button, so we're just piping this value through to whichever one is selected. I don't think that's going to be particularly useful to us. Is it? So what I'm just trying to think of is the most efficient way of updating the X, Y, and Z based on knowledge of which particular field we're working with. So, like, the long way of doing it would be to do that, and then just do that plus. Oh, sorry. Of course, that needs to be a string as well, doesn't it? Because we're appending a number. We're not. So yeah, so that needs to be converted to a string, and then we need to append. In this case, it would be a 0, and then that would convert back to our float. And then we'd simply pipe that into there. And then for each of these, we'd have to do this for each option. So that's for the X. So obviously we also need the Y and Z. Which means I could probably macro this, to be honest. Yeah, because for each key press, we're going to need 3 versions of this, depending on which field we have highlighted currently. So if I were to make this into a macro, think I know where I'm going with this. I just need to get my head around it. So we need 3 booleans and a string. So the string is going to be character. Oh, I might be able to use an integer for the x, y, and z actually. Because fortunately we can do a select off of this. Okay. Actually, even betterer. Yeah. A plan has formed. Right, if we take 3 copies of that, we pop all 3 of these into here, like so. I shall tidy this up after. So if none or any of the others are selected, then we want to use the existing value. So there, so this one's the x, so that. Otherwise, we will use character. Just realised we want that to be I can actually make it even easier. So if it's GPS X or Long Range Galaxy X, then we want to append that value to our float, and then pop that back in there. So it's only going to append a value if it's Galaxy X or Long Range X that are selected. Otherwise it's appending nothing, which gives us the same value we started with. And then similarly for these two. So save a bit of time and just copy the whole thing. What that is. Right, so we don't need that, we don't need that. Pop that in there. Get rid of that, that, and that. Yeah, it's alright, I'll sort them in a sec. I also connected this to the wrong thing, of course, so because that's the one I want. Yeah, so we want to append that value with either that or nothing. And then sort of branch this off as well, just to make it a bit neater. And then we've got Y value. And again with Z value. Right, I think that should do it. May as well move that down there. So the logic here is, and we don't even need that. So we give ourselves an input character, and then we check to see which is our current active input field. We run a select on that. We convert the X, Y, and Z into a string. We append whatever this character is to that string, and then we convert that back to a float so we can reconstruct our vector and store that as our value. So that should be everything that we needed to do. So armed with this macro, which needs a name, append character to vector.
Cake.
Oh, thanks.
I'm back, everyone. Did you miss me? I didn't get chocolate. I got Pringles and slices.
You can leave that on if you want, actually. Yeah, please. Thank you all.
You're welcome.
She's returned with cake. I could have had this within the macro, but I'd rather keep it outside just so we can retain visibility of what's going on. It's not a chocolate cake, it is a apple turnover. It's like a cream and an apple pastry thing. Given the time of night, I assume it was Tesco, because that's the only place that's open around here. Are you mocking my accent? Hey Alan, all good? Okay, so our macro that we just made should do all the heavy lifting there to append the string. I will just give it a quick whirl just to be sure that it does. Obviously what we're not doing yet is actually applying that value, so we just need to do that as well. It's nice because it means we can avoid doing this, which is what we were doing. In fact, all of this can go, which is this. So that basically this whole chunk of code can be deleted, and then we can do it within the main code handling bit. I'm going to start collapsing these soon because it's getting a bit unwieldy. The decimal point is stripped at the point of display. Move that out of the way a sec. Well, actually, we are actually already doing it wherever we were doing it. Here. So in actual fact, yeah, I don't think we need to even do anything else, so let's give that a whirl. So right now nothing happens. Press edit, it clears the field. Okay, it's obviously sending the data. If I press set, does that actually do anything? No. Okay. Let's do a debug on that, make sure it's actually doing something. definitely piping through. Just sanity check, manual input field, blah 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 blah. Definitely appending the value. That one, that one, that one, that one, that one. Okay, so it should default to 0. So I'm going to put in like 9 in there. Just to see whether or not that's 9 in places we don't want it. No, it's not appending the string. Oh, actually. Okay. Yes, exactly as CSI says. The sensor's UI is a tremendous amount of data, and as the sensors have grown and grown over the years, the sheer number of variables and old experiments and things which have lingered around, and just various bits of horrible code have needed to be replaced with something which is a lot more data efficient. But as we start to build out multiple layers of targeting, so selecting like a star system and then selecting a planet within that system, etc., etc., and then displaying the data for all those objects, the data structure behind the sensors needs to be a lot more robust and a lot more expandable. Which is what all this is about. It's about building upon this system to make it as good as it possibly could be and as efficient as it possibly could be. It's already leaps and bounds above what it was. Okay, so nothing being appended there. We then edit that. Do we have an 8 on the end? Yes, we do. Ah. Okay, yeah, so it's adding it as a decimal, which, of course, is going to get rounded up to a whole number. So we need to strip the decimals from the float. So what we can do is we can set fractional digits to 0 without grouping. Yeah, I suppose to be honest it is. I'll see if that retains commas, because we don't want it to retain any commas. We're definitely setting the number. I mean, it's... Why is it not passing it through? Oh, I have an idea of why it might be doing that, actually. Right, so we know this is working, so that's good. We don't need that anymore. And we assume that that's working. It might be the case that passing that outside of the macro is not working. Let's just run with that a minute and just see whether or not that is in fact the case. Stop it. No, it's not that. Okay. I would be surprised if it was that, so that's fine. I'm happy for it to not be that. I suppose for just for sanity's sake, I should just grab a copy of that. Just to make sure that we are actually appending it properly. fine. Right, so I think we're good with that macro. I think that's doing exactly what we need it to do, which means this should be being set exactly as we need it to. So the next point of failure is going to be on here, where we're grabbing this value and updating these fields. Right, now I can see what's happening here actually. So because we're doing this clearing of the fields, and we're doing that every single time, if we're sending data through when we have a manual input field selected, so we need an action message. So, and this is exactly why I added such a thing. So if that equals refresh, right here, clear field. Oh, yeah. That'll do it actually. Yeah, so we can just check against that, which means we don't need that. Which means we can guarantee that these get updated, and they only get cleared the once, which would be when we press the edit button. So it means on here, when we press edit, which would be these ones here, so that one, and that one, which is these three. So that would be GPS clear field. Oops, place in some garbage. So this is just telling the UI to clear out those particular fields. Although, I don't think we're running a check. No, we're not. So that's going to clear all of them, which of course we don't want to happen. So we do need that. And it needs to be, so if that and that, so if that equals Galaxy X and clear field, then do the do. let's try this again. Right, so edit the field, it has cleared as expected and not those ones. Okay, and it's appending the value to the end. So what we want to do is we want to clear that value off. So obviously it's when we press edit, it's not removing that from the data, it's just clearing the field visually. So we want to clear it from the data as well. It saved it though, so that's the main thing. And these buttons don't hook up to anything yet.